The murder of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department sparked nationwide protests and urgent calls for police reforms, including right here in Arlington. And this, of course, was intensified by the ACPD's mutual aid response to the Park Police that brought our officers to the front lines of that violent dispersal of peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square outside the White House at the beginning of June. Let's talk a little bit about how our officers were in that situation in the process, in the first place,
Yeah.
rather. Libby?
Well, as you say, we have a mutual aid agreement, and that we have mutual aid agreement all around the region. And in fact, that's the only way this region survives. It's important to note, so every 4 years there's an inauguration downtown. There's no way that, the park police or the district police alone could handle that. So they call from all over. We come to help with that. We have the Marine Corps Marathon every year, not this year, but we have had it every year. And there's no way our police could manage all of the intersections and everything to make sure that goes safely. And we call on the park police. So there's a long-standing mutual aid agreement. It really goes back, the legal part goes back to 9/11. But we've been working on it even longer because we've seen too many, things that hit the region. We all talk about these separate jurisdictions, but we're all together in this. So that's how we came to be down there. The Park Service asked for support first on the Parkway because they were busy downtown. Then they said, we're having a hard time downtown. Please come and help us here. They were assigned to Lafayette Park. They went down first on Saturday. They were there on Sunday. And on Sunday, we're pushing, doing it properly. You didn't hear about any problems with it, moving people out of the park so that the fire fighters could get there to put out the fire in the church. So there was a lot going on. And then it all changed all of a sudden on Monday evening at about 6 o'clock. And our guys were there to help control the crowd, keep people safe. They had thought they'd been told they were going to put up a barrier. And it's been explained to me even that the barrier can be very helpful because when you've got protesters and police like nose to nose, tensions can kind of build up. If you can get a little bit of a separation, that really can help diffuse the situation, which is what you really want to do like that. So they were told they needed to get the barrier up. That's what they thought they were doing. None of our police heard anything about the president until they got home again. But of course, we got a different view of it because we're kind of at a very, 5,000 foot, 10,000 foot level. And once we saw the violence that happened and the president walking across, it sort of all came clear into what the picture was. And it was not a good picture, not anything we wanted to be involved in. Matt, I don't know. That's kind of summary.
I think you described what happened. It's important just to note that we're reevaluating our mutual aid. That doesn't mean we have to have that mutual aid with other adjoining jurisdictions so that we can, the marathon, 9/11, these are instances, and the inauguration, these are instances where there is a shared interest and Arlington interest in mutual aid, but we have to reevaluate and make sure that we provide the right guardrails while also respecting the work that our police does. And I would say my experience with our officers has been positive. We have a fine police force. They were just being used for an improper purpose, and it was evident from the president's walk. That is not the purpose that would have been appropriate. And so I think it was the right step. And now we have to go into the important conversations of what do we do next? How do we reevaluate? And what are the appropriate changes to the way we're policing that will keep Arlington safe and be aligned with our values?
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out, too, there's all this horrible video. If you look at it, I've learned more about crowd control. It's amazing what you learn. So a lot of what you saw from some of the other groups were really bad practices that really endangered people in the crowd. So with something like they call it a flashbang, that's just kind of supposed to scare people and get them to run away. There's a wrong way and a right way to do that. The wrong way, which we sometimes saw, is lobbing it overhead. People get hurt that way. We don't do that. You wait until there's sort of a clear space, lob it in very gently down low, so all it does is make a noise, and people move on. So there are all kinds of things that we learned, and so people were watching really bad behavior, particularly that horrific picture of the park police beating the reporter. That was horrible, and then our guys get lumped in, but we behaved very professionally the whole time there. From what we've had lots of, stories and things that we hear. And now there's a court case, so it'll all come out. But I'm confident that our guys and our men and women behave very professionally. And that then gets down to the locality, Matt, that you talked about here. How can we reassure our community here about policing? And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but everything we're talking about is so connected right now. The pandemic has made some things very clear about equity issues. Then you had the murder of George Floyd, which just was on top of it, and everybody is seeing it because they're home. And anyway, it's all connected, and this is a very turbulent time, very turbulent time.
Well, and as you mentioned, Libby, this has really kind of spurred that nationwide conversation, obviously going a lot further than even just the mutual aid agreements that we have, but the whole idea of police practices. How has that conversation been playing out in recent weeks here in Arlington?
Well, Matt, do you want to take this one first?
Sure. There's different components. All of us, each of us in our individual capacities, joined the Arlington-based Black Lives Matter. Libby was a host, as was Christian, and it was phenomenal in the sense that we saw officers participating as well, and it was very peaceful. You saw masks everywhere, so it was important to be at. And none of us wants to minimize the calls and the importance and the urgency of racial justice, and I guess I would say we also want to be clear about some of the facts. For example, Libby was alluding, the videos that you may have seen that are so disturbing, those are not our officers. Our officers were professional in that time and were reevaluating. So we have a lot of work to do. We've started with body-worn cameras, which we have received over 1,000 emails about police reform related issues. Tomorrow, we're also having conversations that are going to be listening to the community's concerns, which we all think are essential. This is not the end, this is the beginning, and we are here to listen and engage with you to take our police and our community to the next step of fairness and safety.
Yeah, and I'm viewing this is really all of this is really an opportunity, because we have, as Matt said, we've heard over like thousands, well over 1,000 emails from people, and it's really clear everybody feels passionate about it. It's really clear that a number of the people writing in, quite a few of them, it's maybe their first time. In fact, some of them even said this. It's their first time reaching out to the board. So it's an incredible opportunity to inform people. And we have, so for example, chokeholds. They have been forbidden in our code for a long time. So, we need to let folks know that. De-escalation. The reason that we were able to move forward so quickly on body-worn cameras, which is not, I think I'll take an opportunity. It's not like you can just take a cell phone here and tape it to your chest and hit play. It doesn't work that way, because what you have to have is the device that then has to feed the video into and then that has to be kept. And then on the other end, the courts have to be able to use that video and have the equipment to do that. So there's a whole lot that needs to happen. And we're going to match up our body-worn cameras that we're putting in with we're going to put in, we already have cameras in our vehicles, but they need to be upgraded. So rather than upgrade, we're just going to put the same system in, so it all will be seamless. And then I learned something, I don't know, Matt, if this was news to you. We're not only doing our police, but the manager recommends sheriffs, I get that, and fire marshals. Who knew fire marshals apparently carry lethal force? I had no idea.
I don't
They
think I knew
carry
that either.
guns. No. And so everybody who has, has the right to use legal right to do that in the community, needs to be wearing a body-worn camera, and we're going to see that happens. So it's a good opportunity to let people know. Our police have actually, they came to us wanting body-worn cameras some time ago, which is why and in fact, before times when we were in the middle of getting our budget going and we were having budget work sessions like we always used to do, one of the next ones we were going to get to before COVID hit was on body-worn cameras, and we were going to have a discussion about that. So the material was all ready and good to go. And then one more thing is, we're hearing a lot about mental health services and police, and actually our police are well trained, but they don't like to go on those calls either. So I think we're going to be able to have some good discussions. People understand exactly where it is that we are, which is not a horrible place. And we've got professional police and what we can do to make it better. So.
And then, of course, tying it all back then to what we were talking about earlier with the coronavirus pandemic, some doctors have warned that the peaceful protests that were taking place will then inevitably lead to a spike in COVID-19 cases. What are your feelings on that, and what have we been seeing here in Arlington so far?
All right, Matt, I talked a lot. I'm going to let you take this one, but I've got feelings about it too.
Sure. Well, I think they're absolutely fair concerns. But I was actually very heartened in near the courthouse there. People were socially distanced, and so it was spread down Wilson Boulevard. There was people were staying apart, and that is critical. I think it's important to honor just how strongly so many of us feel about the need for change in terms of safety for our Black and brown communities and individuals. And so fair concern, absolutely, on protests, but as we see people wearing masks and being careful about not being too close to other people, social distancing, I honestly believe we can do both stay safe and advocate for the values and smart changes that we absolutely need.
Yeah. And everybody was wearing masks. It's better when you're outside. So I felt pretty good about that. I will say that was one of the it's been kind of a grim time, and that was a wonderful event. And I found it was because of the social distancing because I was in the front of the group as we got across the bridge. By that point, Evan, who was heading it up too, set a really quick pace, which is easy if you're young and strong and have long legs. It was a little harder for me. And I also kept the mask on as much as I could, but sometimes I was having trouble breathing, so I'd move apart to take the mask off. But when we got across the bridge, I saw an empty bench, and I thought, all right, this is my time, but I'm going to take a break because I want to get all the way to Lafayette Park. It was quite satisfying to get there a week later after our police had been, I think, misused down there. But anyway, I sat on the bench watching people come, and I was going to, I figured I'll let people come and I'll take up the rear, go from the front to the. Well, eventually I got up and kept walking because people were still coming.
Wow.
It was amazing. And to look down the reflecting pool, that was the one time I really teared up. I was there 50 years ago for a demonstration against the war. So I kind of go back over time. Looking down there and seeing the beautiful pool, the flags, the Washington Monument, the Capitol, and all these people, all from Arlington, and all there because they believe in what those buildings stand for. It was just, and totally mixed, mixed races, all different kinds of people, mixed ages. It was just, anyway, it did my heart good. Did my heart good.
Good.
Yeah.
And on that note, that's a pretty good transition for us. But amidst everything that's been happening, of course, the work of county government and the board did need to continue. We will take a short break on that note. And when we come back, we'll take a look at the manager's proposed capital improvement plan, another budget dramatically altered by the COVID-19 pandemic. Stay with us.